everyone. Hello. How do we sound? Sure that's grabbing the right mic. Hope everyone's doing great today. Happy Saturday. Are all my freaks and my peeps doing? Low volume? Yeah, there we go. Is that better? Hopefully it sounds okay. Let's make sure it's grabbing the right microphone. I was just kind of concerned about that. How you doing today, Elias? Where the hell's the audio? Okay, here it is. Yeah, it should be okay. It's pulling straight from the Go XLR, and it's not something separate, so we should be okay. All right. Hello. Saturday. Lots of great things happening in the news. Not, because we are in the USN, United States Navy. I think, maybe. Lexi, how you doing, man? Where are you seeing? Oh, I didn't update the thing. Son of a bitch. Hold on. Oh crap, I didn't update that. Hold on. Hold on. What have I done? What have I done? It's the first time I haven't updated those. Let me... Can I update these? I can, okay. There we go, that's updated. Now I have to fix this. I had plenty of time today too, that wasn't a problem. You did notice? I noticed. If you're mentioning that, that's from the last stream. Alright, so this is what it should say. Hopefully it looks okay now. And it was even sitting there in chat for however long and I didn't notice it. Yikes. Yikes, I had plenty of time. Playing some Factorio Simple Tower Defense game. Okay, cool. Yeah, I played that. I played some of that sort of stuff on Facebook before. Not so much. I was doing the Humankind like pre-release thing, but it has a set week that you can play it, and then it's done. So I played a bunch of that. Other than that, that comes out I think in August. And then I'll be, I think July comes Warhammer 40k Battle Sector. Like it's like July 15th or something like that. So that's I'm played a little bit of BattleTech last night, and that's pretty much it. I've been busy with other stuff, not a whole lot of game playing. But yeah, I'm doing okay. A little tired. I don't know. I've been tired these last few days. Actually, I was tired yesterday for some reason. I took melatonin the previous few days. I actually took a nap yesterday, which is bizarre because I can't nap, but I was really tired yesterday. So I took a nap for an hour, and I slept late today too, so I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but I'm okay. I'm okay. And I skipped Thursday's stream. I didn't pick up my daughter during the day when I should have. I forgot all about it, so I felt kind of bad about that. But everything turned out fine. She's at a high school. So that's Giving Mind. How you doing, man? Welcome. Welcome, welcome. So, and also this weekend's her birthday. We got her a phone. Kind of the me forgetting to pick her up kind of prompted the phone getting, but I've been thinking about that for... You're getting vaxxed next week? Oh, okay, cool. Good for you. Which one? I had Moderna, and the second one just wrecked me. The wife and I wrecked us both. Or on that second day. The third day wasn't so bad. Don't know yet? Okay. Well, good luck in either case. So yeah, we got the daughter a new phone. It's a simple, it's like an A32 Samsung. It's one of the cheaper models, so that, you know, it's not like awesome, just enough to have something. Johnson & Johnson? Okay, cool. Got your Moderna today? Oh yeah, that's what I had too. Number one's fine. Felt a little bit like, you know, I'm fighting a little something, but nothing major. But number two, wrecked. $1,000? No, Jesus Christ. The point that she might end up losing it. Yeah, no. I was looking at, they had like a Samsung that was like $179, like an A12 or something like that. It's like, whoa. But they didn't have that one. The one they had was about $280, so we went with that one. So hopefully, my daughter's 12. Hopefully she'll be able to keep this one until we can, you know, she's a bit older. OnePlus is a good brand for smartphones. OnePlus? Is that, what brand is that? Is that the brand? Never heard of it. Is it what country does that come from? Is that Google? Does Google Plus? No, I know theirs is Pixel. We also, I feel like phone progress has stagnated. Yeah, I mean, it's Chinese brand, quite popular amongst. Okay, interesting. Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, they're all basically, they're very similar. I mean, there hasn't been any major changes to phones. I mean, in fact, there's been a huge jump in camera quality over the last few years, but that's pretty much it for the most part. Yeah, I can't imagine there's gonna be any major jumps in anything. You judge me. Sorry. Yeah, I've been Samsung for quite a while and Android for quite a while. I know it's bad of me. I am pretty much Google everything. Google. Please don't hold it against me too much. My businesses are all Google. Everything is Google. I've got so much in my Gmail account that I've had to start deleting stuff. I've reached my near 15 gigabyte limit. I haven't wanted to pay for the extra however much. But, got a whole bunch of garbage in there. Start deleting it. And I've been okay for a while. We'll see how long that lasts. Might not be the best choice for price to performance when buying a cheap phone. Brands like Xiaomi. Okay. I don't know if we had any. We go through US Cellular, which is local, kind of south central Wisconsin area. Is kind of where they're based out of. It's Samsung and iPhone, and they had I don't think they had Nokia. It wasn't Nokia. It was it's another brand. Can't remember what it was. No, it wasn't Xiaomi. I haven't seen those. I would have been interested to take a look at that. What the fuck was it? It's a well-known one. Get a phone from some cellular company might just be the best to get one with the plan. Yeah, yeah. For ours, we've had a plan with these guys for a decade. It's just add another line. It's just fine. What the fuck was it? It was I want to say Go something. Go Mobile, which doesn't make any sense to me. Don't know. I heard them mentioned in Great Phones for Kids. They had some that they didn't have screens on them, because I was thinking about just getting one just for making calls, but then it's like, they had one there for like $179. Like, that's fucking cheap. So just went with a normal, though normal phone, which wasn't as powerful as everything else. And we also got a tablet as well. That way she can use that at home instead of using the phone. Plus, especially during COVID, speaking with her friends and stuff like that, she's been using her phone because the tablet we did have, which was a Samsung Tab 4, just couldn't handle anything. iPad, we do have an iPad too, although that was given to us, and that is also very old and hasn't been able to manage the applications that the daughter needs to interact with her friends. So that's been annoying too. So both the Samsung, and the iPad have not been powerful enough to deal with it. They're old. I mean, how old is the Tab 4 is probably 6 or 7 or 8 years or something like that. Was it Moto E1? Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought about kind of going that way. Yeah, like my first phone when I got out of the Navy was it was one of those amazing flip phones. Was it Nokia? It was a Nokia flip phone, and I loved they had this rock alarm, phone chime, amazing. I miss that rock phone chime from Nokia. I always tried finding something that's similar to that on the Samsungs, but I've never been able to find something that was good enough for it. Paid €100 for it. Okay, that's not bad. Not bad at all. Silver Samsung phone. No idea what the name is. Okay, cool. Yeah, my first one was a Nokia, and I think my first two were Nokias, the flip phones, and think I had flip phones for a few years until I jumped to a smartphone. I didn't want to go to a smartphone because they're fucking expensive. But once I went to my first smartphone, I'm like, how the fuck did life exist before I got a smartphone? What is a Nokia? Well, yeah, I mean, here in the US, there was some lawsuit that went on however many years ago, and Nokia got booted from here. I think, is it Nokia from Sweden? No, Finland. It's from Finland, isn't it? Yeah, something like that. Finland. Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, I missed the Nokia. I really enjoyed the one that I had. But yeah, I don't know if they started selling those back here in the US or not. I thought they dealt with the lawsuit thing here. I can't remember. But I've been Samsung pretty much since I got one, and I've been liking it. Especially this S10. The S10 is Ericsson. Oh, Ericsson is Sweden. Okay. This S10 has been amazing. The battery life is amazing. The memory is amazing. It's just been about, screen size has been great. It's just been a really good phone. It's like so long ago. Yeah, definitely. Especially for the Nokia thing. That's been, I don't know, it's been a decade or something since all that bullshit happened. I don't even remember what was the issue. There's some patent issue, wasn't it? That got them in trouble here in the US? I don't remember. I don't. But I want that Nokia rock track. That rock chime. Yep, so I have an S10. My wife, I think, still has, I don't think it's not an S8. She has an S9, I think. She didn't upgrade the last time because her phone was just fine for her. HMT Global has the license to sell phones under the Nokia's brand. Oh, okay. HMT Global. Interesting. I haven't seen any of those around here either. Not that I go looking. Interesting. I'll keep that in mind. I'll see if I can keep that in mind. HMT Global. Interesting. All right. So, phone talk. Yeah. Let's get started. Got lots of shit to cover here. Any questions, comments, suggestions before we get started? Got two articles here, starting with talking about the Delta variant from India, and we covered this on Tuesday. So we'll cover this a little bit more because it's kind of important. I know I've kind of freaked out about the British variant when that hit here in Madison, which is very close to where I'm at. Which is why I got the vaccine, because I wasn't overly keen on getting it, but because it affects children more, got child, school, and all that sort of stuff, I got my vaccine. Now the Delta variant, the Indian variant, is even supposedly worse than that. Around 10% fully vaccinated people. Thanks to them. Oh, okay. So I heard that 40% of the new cases in Britain are from the Delta variant, but you're specifically saying that the hospitalization rate is around 10% for fully vaccinated. Okay. Interesting. Well, that's not so bad. If so, 10% of those people who were hospitalized were vaccinated, and they had the Delta variant. Okay, well that's seems like pretty decent protection. That's pretty cool. 99% of cases in UK are now Delta, I believe. They are. The last article we read a few days ago said 40%. Do you have an article on that stating 99%? Holy fuck in a box. Yep, I have this article. We're gonna go over this one. Is that where it talks about it? Okay. Well, we're gonna read this and we'll go over that. So I've got that right here. CNBC, right? Yeah, that's what it looks like. Yep. Okay, good. We'll go over this. And I guess we'll get our answer in there. Thanks for sharing. All right. So we'll start with this, and then we'll get to the CNBC one, which may talk about the number of cases in Britain. Get rid of the sidebar. Sidebar, go the fuck away. Oh, fuck. All right. Is this too big for you guys? It's almost too big for me. Almost. All right, from MSN, from Newsweek, COVID Delta variant, the most transmissible, spreading in at least 85 countries from the World Health Organization. Not spreading from the World Health Organization, but the World Health Organization is stating this. That would be pretty funny, though. The COVID-19 Delta variant is the most transmissible of the known variants and is spreading in at least 85 countries, warned the Director General of the World Health Organization. Got a mask on. Last week, 36,000 Delta in UK, 2,400 Alpha. Okay. Rest basically nothing. Okay. Yeah, originally they had the Mother Nature Order 66 for dumb people. Lydius, man, how you doing, man? Good to see you here. Yeah, it's... I know you're filled with rage, as am I. I tend not to go quite that far, but... Yeah. It's going to be, some of it's going to be that way. People who aren't going to vaccinate and wear a mask, it's definitely going to get them more. Now, and that will have some effects. Yeah. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus attributed the strain spread to the lack of vaccines provided to poor countries and blamed richer nations for harboring the shots on Friday. True statement. More wipe them out, all of them. Yikes, dude. Dark. We're pretty doomer here, but I haven't quite fallen that far into into it though. But I get what you're saying. It's hard to maintain compassion for right wingers and people who are so much a part of the problem. But you also have to realize, Ali, that even these right wingers, they are a victim of our broken system. The system wants people to be conservative because they become the largest bastion to maintain the status quo. And yes, it is problematic, hugely problematic. Here's the big city, Brussels will only get 55% adult population vaccination, while the countryside will get 90%? Oh, why? Oh, interesting. And they're getting more vaccines? Interesting. Like here in I heard United States has like 47%, and like Britain had just like a slight percentage higher. It's distributed the same? Okay. Interesting. Yeah, it is weird. That is weird. Again, just much like he's saying here, part of the reason why the Delta variant is spreading is because, global systemic and structural racism, the inequality between the Western nations and the global North and the global South. We've talked about this sort of stuff here at length. Gates stopping the open sourcing of vaccines, and of course Finland having the opportunity to open source the governmentally developed vaccine, but choosing not to. I just now refer to anti-vaxxers, citizens in name only. They want the benefits of living without masks and able to go anywhere without doing any of the work to get there. Basically, they have become the freeloaders they can play about. Well, I'll push back a little bit. I didn't want to get vaccinated because it's not fully tested. So I was one of them. I'm not anti-vax, I'm pro-vax. I wasn't quite ready to do it. But what had me do it was because the British variant, the B117, had hit here, and it was more contagious. It's more contagious and tends to affect children more. So, I've got a child. It's like, well, I have to bite the bullet and, do what I can to protect my daughter. And also I'm running for school board, so protecting children is kind of part of what I should be doing. So that's what had me do it. Now, if that wasn't the case, I probably would have gotten it just because the Delta variant is even worse than that. It's like 50% more contagious than even the British variant is, or something like that. It's because there's more immigrants there, more anti-vaxxers in general public as well. as big city is Franco. Okay, Francophone. Well, I'm still doubtful of vaccinating myself. I'm a healthy 19-year-old. I will get it. Okay, good for you. We are the most affected city in Germany, so getting vaccination was quite easy choice. Okay, yeah. If it was running rampant, yeah, I'd probably get it too. Where am I doing, man? Where you been? How's Moscow? Moscow? You're in Moscow. How's Moscow? We're talking the vaccination, COVID, and the Delta variant is what we're just getting into it now. We were talking cell phones before that. Is lockdown? Okay. Is it? Okay. What is the I'm fine. Moscow is fine too, except COVID. What is Moscow's what are they doing with COVID? Because Moscow is very different than the rest of Russia. It's its own little country, basically. Are they masking? Social distancing? I don't expect they're doing much of anything. Because, Putin. And they're not doing much anything here, of course, because, America doesn't care. Not only are they not doing anything there, Biden got an article on here, is increasing wants to increase the money going to police. Because racism. I also read that anti-vax is more rampant in Russia than in the US. But our title, okay. Yeah, I could kind of see that. They tend to be more conservative. Authoritarianism in general will kind of lead the populace to be more conservative and distrustful, I guess. That kind of makes sense. That's kind of what I'm expecting too, but I'm not sure. All right, I'll keep reading. Okay, so blame the richer nations for harboring the shots on Friday. Yep, because global racism. He compared the current global situation to the AIDS outbreak and then the 2009 swine flu pandemic when poor countries received vaccines long after both crises ending. And again, this is a big fucking problem and it's wrong. Everyone in Moscow must be vaccinated. Oh, okay. Otherwise, it is impossible to work and enjoy the benefits. Okay, but this is only in Moscow. I've already told you that I was vaccinated by Sputnik. Oh, okay. Cool. Have I made contact with aliens? Well, my wife is a legal alien. Does that count? She's from Belarus. Does that count? You have a very U.S.-oriented view on the conservative equals act. I do. I most definitely do. That's definitely. Here, the Green Party voters are most anti. Oh, really? Okay, what is their stance on anti-vax? I mean, there's a difference between being anti-vax, being educated, and seeing the problems with it. Like, I'm not anti-vax, I'm pro-vaccine, but I have significant issues with how vaccines are created here in this country. The vaccine court and testing and all that sort of garbage that's going on. Vaccines are a very, very important technology, but they aren't really anti-vax, I believe. Okay, all right. Yeah, that's kind of what I expect. I identify as green. I don't keep up with it at all, but I can't imagine green being anti-vax, but anti-science movement in the Green Party. Okay, well, like Jill Stein, she had a very similar idea to what I had. She's not against vaccines. She's a doctor, right? Has a problem with the system in which, the corporate ownership of the FDA and the government and that sort of a thing. It's not about vaccines, it's about the process. And that's kind of the way I feel about it as well. St. Petersburg has nothing because of that Swedish and Finnish fans who was on the Euro 2020 matches in SPP has COVID, every one of them. Oh, wow. I have a friend in St. Petersburg. Hope this isn't seen as a troll, but what is it you and your wife's opinion on communism? The part of the Green Party that likes homeopathy and alternative medicine. Okay, I see. Gotcha. Yeah, okay. That makes sense then. So, my wife doesn't really care about politics at all. For me, I haven't done enough research on it to have a very well educated stance on it. I've read a little bit of the Communist Manifesto. Mostly what I hear of communism, it's the primary thing that it provides is a critique of the massive failures of industrialization and capitalism, and those are pretty much all valid, right? Had capitalism not been so shitty and destructive, communism never would have sprung out. The labor movement never would have sprung up, nor would socialism, right? And what they promote as far as evolving beyond, like communism is going beyond money. I support that too. So, thank you so much for the follow. Thank you. So, from my limited understanding, I it makes sense to me. But for me, I tend to be, I think I'm a step beyond that. At least I think so. I support a resource-based economy, which is beyond monetary systems, and that sort of thing. So there's lots of similarities between, I guess, communism and resource-based economy, at least in ending monetary systems and that sort of thing. So I don't know. Take that for what you think it means, I guess. I need to learn more is what I need to say. I know 2021 now, just year 2020 was postponed to 2021. Okay. Yeah, I've seen, as far as homeopathy and alternative medicine, I've seen some recently a post on Facebook. There's homeopathy can have some benefits, but it's not, like aloe vera on burns, right? That's a thing. That's something that we should be doing and understanding. But there's no substitute for vaccines. There's no substitute for, other medicines or surgery or anything like that, right? I mean, depending on how you want to go with homeopathy or alternative medicine or something like that, it might have its place. Again, that has to be science-backed and not just, whatever. Take dandelions to cure everything. No, it doesn't work that way. Okay, so here we go. Next. Well, if it's science-backed, okay. Well, that is fair. That is fair. Fair enough. Is this dude an Ethiopian politician? Which dude? Up here? Meow. Tag? What's going on? Tag, you're it? Did I miss something? Oh, okay. Yeah, this guy up here. I do not know. Does not say. Does not say. There we go. Maybe it'll say down below. The Delta variant of the virus will continue to evolve, said Maria von Kerkhove, the COVID-19 technical lead for the World Health Organization. Right now, our public health and social measure work, our vaccines work, our diagnostic work, our therapeutics work, but there may be a time where this virus evolves and these countermeasures don't. She warned, the global situation is incredibly fragile. The Delta variant was first discovered in India. Ghebreyesus described a recent meeting he attended of an advisory group established to allocate vaccines. They were disappointed because there is no vaccine to allocate. He said, criticizing rich countries for declining to immediately share shots with the developing world. If there's no vaccine, what do you share? Ghebreyesus said the global community was failing. Yes, of course it is, because fucking capitalism, right? Again, like I talked about earlier, and we've read articles earlier, I think Finland had a government-created vaccine, and they were considering open sourcing it, but they offered it to the companies, for Pfizer and Moderna, and they said no, and then they didn't open source it. Fox greater than MSNBC. True statement. And then the United States, what was it? Was it Pfizer? Honestly, I don't know, Pfizer or Moderna was considering open sourcing their vaccine, but Gates talked them out of it. We had the ability to give all the countries access to the vaccine, but capitalism said no. It took 10 years for antiretrovirals to reach the low-income countries after HIV was already rampant in high-income countries, he said. Do we want to repeat the same thing? COVAX, the UN-backed effort aiming to distribute vaccines to poor countries, has missed several targets to share COVID-19 shots, and its biggest supplier is not expected to export any vaccines until the end of the year. Hundreds of millions of doses promised by countries including Britain, the US, and others are not likely to arrive anytime soon. We have Cuba, yeah. I mean, Cuba's developing vaccines, and are they exporting them too? I assume they are to an extent. I mean, they've been gangbusters in trying to help the world deal with this. I think COVAX is what Bill Gates tried to put together to make sure we don't open source vaccines and make sure that the rest of the world is suffering without vaccines. We have, through COVAX this month, 0 doses of AstraZeneca vaccine, 0 doses of Pfizer, 0 doses of Johnson & Johnson, acknowledged Dr. Bruce Aylward, senior advisor to the World Health Organization chief. Every single one of our suppliers is unable to supply during this period because others are making demands on those products, others who are vaccinating very young populations that are not at risk. As border restrictions and other public health measures are loosened across Europe, the US, and in other countries with high vaccination rates, World Health Organization officials warned that this could lead to a resurgence of the disease. No clue does vaccines is really helpful. Maybe it's just business. I mean, I expect it does. I mean, I don't think we currently have solid statistics on how it works or does not work on the variants. There's a little bit out there about those statistics, but I'm not sure. That's what I really want to see. The statistic I really want to see is from people who are vaccinated with both doses, what is the retransmission rate for all the variants? Because that's really what kind of matters. Because if you're vaccinated, you're not immune to it. Yeah, you can still get it, and you can still, be asymptomatic from it, and what matters at that point is, can you get someone else sick? That's the big thing about opening up, and versus specifically the Delta variant and the other variants, and how well do the vaccines currently work against all these other variants. Van Kerkhove said that while transmission is dropping in Europe, there are numerous events, from large sporting events to backyard barbecues, that all have consequences for disease spread. Earlier this month, British officials announced that they would allow 60,000 fans to attend the semifinals and finals of the European Football Championship at London's Wembley Stadium, to the dismay of some public health experts. Yeah, this shit drives me nuts. Drives me nuts. Lawrence Young, a virologist at the University of Warwick, called it worrying and confusing, saying there was limited data to prove its safety, especially given the prevalence of the more infectious Delta variant, which is exactly what I was saying. The inevitable opportunities for the virus to spread in enclosed spaces like laboratories is a recipe for disaster. Exactly. In this outside, it's less of an issue, especially if you're keeping some distance and you're not getting in people's grills, right? But once you get indoors, it stays in the air for like a half an hour, and in bathrooms and enclosed spaces, it can get everywhere and get everyone sick, and it's just not a good thing. People not being stupid, governments not being stupid, because capitalism is, hard to find. All right, so there's that one, talking about the Delta variant. Now we'll get into the one that was shared earlier, and we will jump into this one. Whoa. There we go. All right, this is from just yesterday. World Health Organization urges fully vaccinated people to continue to wear masks, of course, as Delta COVID variant spreads. Now, I don't know if Vladimir will ban COVID as an unauthorized around. That's funny. If only we could ban diseases, right? Niggas can get passports, let them track where they're going easily. make this bigger. There we go. The World Health Organization on Friday urged fully vaccinated people to continue to wear masks. Fuck yeah. Social distance and practice other COVID-19 pandemic safety measures as the highly contagious Delta variant spreads rapidly across the globe. Definitely. I completely agree 100%. People cannot feel safe just because they had the 2 doses. They still need to protect themselves. Dr. Mariangela Simao, World Health Organization Assistant Director General for Access to Medicines and Health Products, said during a news briefing for the agency's Geneva headquarters. From the agency's Geneva headquarters. Masks in the summer, just, oh my God. Oh, I know. I was just, I just went to get my Mountain Dew, and in our town, it's rained this morning, so there's still just a bunch of humidity in the air, and I was just in getting the soda, and oh my God, it was really, really humid. Wasn't pleasant, and I was the only person in there. There was like 4 or 5 other people in there, and none of them were masked. The person who was at the register wasn't masked either, and they haven't been masking for, they haven't for, weeks now. Yeah, I'm the only mask hole in there. Just doing my part. Vaccines alone won't stop community transmission. Simao added people need to continue to use masks consistently, be in ventilated spaces, hand hygiene, the physical distance, avoid crowding. This still continues to be extremely important even if you're vaccinated when you have a community transmission ongoing. The health organization's comments come as some countries, including the United States, they have largely done away with masks and pandemic-related restrictions as the COVID vaccines have helped to drive down the number of new infections and deaths. Now, the issue with this statement, the problem is the vaccines shift, it'll reduce deaths, which is a good thing. But also, we don't know what the true number of infections are, because one of the primary goals of the vaccine is to hopefully get any infection to be asymptomatic, meaning no symptoms at all. And if the vaccine is successful, and most people that do end up getting it are asymptomatic, we don't have any idea how many new infections there really are unless we are doing random testing, like Finland was doing at the very beginning. The United States hasn't really done random testing as far as I'm aware. So we don't really know what the rate of new infections are, assuming the vaccines are successful in making people who do get infected asymptomatic. So we really need random testing in order to know that that is a thing. The number of new infections in the US has held steady over the last week at an average of 11,659 new cases per day, according to data compiled by Johns Hopkins University. Still, new infections have been plummeting over the last several months. Now again, unless we have randomized testing, we don't know if this is actually true. World Health Organization officials said they are asking fully vaccinated people to continue to play it safe because a large portion of the world remains unvaccinated, and highly contagious variants like Delta are spreading in many countries, spurring outbreaks. The Wall Street Journal reported Friday that about half of adults infected in an outbreak of the Delta variant in Israel were fully vaccinated. Oh, fuck this. Okay, so this is important. Let's read this again. Let's read this again, because this is kind of important. Come on. So, about half of the adults infected in an outbreak of the Delta variant in Israel were fully vaccinated with the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. So, they were fully vaccinated, and they got the Delta variant. And they were infected, right? Prompting the government there to reimpose an indoor mask requirement and other measures, right? So of the people who were infected, they got the Delta variant, and they were vaccinated. So the vaccine is not magic, as we've been saying. So it's still important to protect yourself and your families and your friends and everything. Your coworkers, wear your fucking mask. Social distance, wash. Yes, you can reduce some measures, and different countries have different recommendations in that regard, but there's still the need for caution. Dr. Bruce Aylward, Senior Advisor to the World Health Organization's Director General, said at the briefing. As we are seeing, there are new variants emerging. The World Health Organization said last week that Delta is becoming the dominant variant of the disease worldwide. Yikes. World Health Organization officials have said the variant, first found in India but now in at least 92 countries, is the fastest and fittest coronavirus strain, and it will pick off the most vulnerable people, especially in places with low COVID vaccination rates. Yeah, we read this article on Tuesday, specifically talking about this. They said there were reports that the Delta variant also causes more severe symptoms, but that more research is needed to confirm those conclusions. Yeah, and that's what we talked about this when we first saw the Delta thing come out. But again, they didn't have the research to say specifically how much worse it is. The numbers were, what, 56% more contagious and 62% more severe or something like that. Yeah, I want to see what these numbers are as well. Still, there are signs the Delta strain could provoke different symptoms than other variants. Yes, we've read that as well, but I don't know what those other signs are. Okay, let's fuck off. Let's take a look at this and see what those different symptoms are, because I have not read anything on that at all. Blah, blah, blah. 62% more transmissible than the Alpha variant. Okay, so that's different symptoms. Okay, the Delta variant appears to be provoking a different range of symptoms. It's more like a bad cold in this younger population. People don't realize that, and that has come across. Okay. So mild symptoms. Headache, sore throat, runny nose, fever. More traditional COVID symptoms such as cough and loss of smell were much rarer now, he said, with younger people experiencing much more of a bad cold or funny off feeling. Okay. Okay. So it looks like the Delta tends to be more like a cold. Jaws Bay, how you doing? Hello. Hello, Governor. How you doing today? Doing some COVID stuff. All right, it has the potential to be more lethal because it's more efficient in the way it transmits between humans, and it will eventually find those vulnerable individuals who become severely ill, have to be hospitalized, and potentially die. Dr. Mike Ryan, Executive Director of the World Health Organization's Health Emergencies Program, said Monday. In the US, President Joe Biden said COVID deaths nationwide will continue to rise due to the spread of the dangerous Delta variant, calling it a serious concern. Well, then why don't you fucking do something about it, you jackhole? Arrgh. He warned that Americans who are still unvaccinated are especially at risk. Well, then fucking do something about it, you asshole. 600,000 plus Americans have died, and with this Delta variant, you know there's going to be others as well. You know it's going to happen. Got to get young people vaccinated, Biden said on Thursday at a community center in Raleigh, North Carolina. Critical race theory, yes. I just had someone on Facebook Messenger lose their mind at me on this, and I ended up wrecking her on it. It was pretty interesting. Or do you actually mean a cathode ray tube? I'm assuming you mean critical race theory. All right, any questions, comments, suggestions on the Delta variant of COVID before we move on? I don't have any articles on, I have one article on CR critical race theory, just talking about the U.S. military general who's getting a lot of shit about wanting to understand it. That sort of a thing. I mean, it's nothing, from what little I've understand about it, it's simply just understanding systemic and structural racism as it applies to the United States and looking at our history through that lens. I mean, it's nothing, I mean, it's not, it shouldn't be an issue unless you're a racist. I mean, you know, in a sense, in my educational policies, I say we need to talk about racism, and we need to teach racism, and we need to talk about systemic and structural racism and why it's a thing and all that sort of stuff, because it's important. Do you actually have a good def on CRT or don't know what it is? I haven't looked at it in depth. It's as far as I understand, it's just talking about systemic and structural racism. It exists, and it should be a thing. I mean, I don't know why it's controversial at all. It's been around and taught in colleges since the 60s. The GOP is running out of things to make their base mad about. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and what I also heard is that it's specifically taught in college. It's taught, CRT itself is taught in colleges specifically to people who are in law. It's a more of a legal thing than it is anything else. So I don't know what. Yeah, obviously, like you're saying here, they're creating something else for people to be mad about just because they need something else to be mad about. It should be. The GOP think it's K-12? Of course they do. I mean, whatever they can do, like Elidis is saying, just to scare the shit out of people is what they're going to do. I mean, just the irrationality and the insanity of the right is just that. It's just that. The right thinks a lot of things. And they're typically insane. All right, let's see if I get rid of this. Too big. All right, so I do have a minor quibble with this, with the title. It's minor. Evictions aren't just a symptom of poverty, they're a cause of it. Now, also, if you're anywhere near being evicted, you're already in poverty. So evictions are a symptom of poverty. But what they're honestly saying here is that I think what they're going to point to in this article is that poverty is expensive, right? If you're evicted, then everything else becomes much more difficult and it becomes a shitstorm of economic hardship. Okay, when was this written? Okay, 26, so this was from today. All right. USA, okay. The United States is deeply hostile to renters, especially in states like Indiana that are staring down an enormous flood of evictions. We need action immediately to avoid a humanitarian disaster of millions being kicked out of their homes this summer. And this is what the millionaires and the billionaires and BlackRocks or whatever are looking forward to. Ban rent. I'm torn on this subject. My policies say housing is a human right, but I don't know how we need to deal with this. It's such a, typically we say it's a human right, that it becomes nationalized or municipalized or something of that nature. And I'm not against that. I just, for me here in the US, the issue becomes that local governments, municipalities, and counties run off property taxes. And if we municipalize or nationalize housing, how's that going to work as far as the interplay of property taxes and that sort of a thing? But yeah, banning rent, I'm not against. But how do we deal with that? Free housing? Okay, I like the idea. Yeah, that's a very resource-based economy way of looking at things. And if you look at, of course, Maslow's hierarchy of needs and deficiency needs, right? Having housing is one of those deficiency needs that if you don't have housing, you're pretty much the rest of your life is fucked because you need housing. All right. Eviction moratorium. Yes, definitely. With the federal moratorium on evictions set to expire, the United States is on the verge of a massive housing crisis. The Thursday afternoon session of the Warren Township Small Claims Court on the east side of Indianapolis begins with a clerk reading out loud the terms of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, moratorium on evictions. This applies to renters at risk of becoming homeless because they lost substantial income due to reduced work hours or medical issues, who have been trying to obtain rental assistance while paying what they can to their landlords, the clerk announces. Tenants who qualify can submit a declaration to their landlord that should keep them in their homes for the time being. Judge Garland Graves takes the bench and the hearings begin. One of the tenants who is facing eviction this afternoon, a young mother, tells Judge Graves that she has not understood the moratorium before the clerk read it aloud. Turns out she had COVID, lost her job, and is awaiting a decision on her application for help with her rent. The judge instructs her on how to file the declaration that may postpone her eviction. But her reprieve may not be for long. The CDC moratorium is set to expire on July 31st, and Indiana, like most states, has no current local or state moratoriums that would protect tenants. This young mother in Indianapolis, like many across the nation, sits on the verge of an eviction crisis. Most likely, her case will get added to the 300-plus stack of evictions in this court, all set for hearing soon after the moratorium expires. Graves estimates more than 1,000 eviction cases are pending in other courts in the Indianapolis area. I think both landlords and tenants see the end of the road for the CDC moratorium coming, he says. The rent some of these tenants owe is more than they can catch up on, and some landlords are refusing to accept government rental assistance. Why the fuck would they do that? So we have a huge number of evictions set to happen once the moratorium ends. Neighborhoods and housing courts across the country face the same looming surge of families being thrown out of their homes. Up to now, the wave of evictions has been largely held at bay by the federal response to COVID-triggered economic struggles. Between the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan, many laid-off workers have received extra unemployment payments, which were expanded to cover gig workers and others who historically did not qualify. More than $40 billion has been earmarked to rental assistance, enough, though much of that money has been very slow to reach renters, while various eviction stays have been issued, including the national CDC moratorium. But for many renters, the temporary government payments in moratoriums delay the pain without remedying it. According to the State of the Nation's Housing Report, released June 16 by Harvard's Joint Center for Housing Studies, more than half of all renter households lost employment income between March 2020 and March of this year. Wow, 1 in 5 renter households is behind on rent. Among black renter households, that number rises to nearly 1 in 3, of course, because systemic and structural racism, right? Yikes. For tenants unable to keep up with rent, the harm will likely go far beyond losing their current homes. A landlord's mere filing of a court request for eviction, even if the case ends up being dismissed or settled, is sometimes referred to as the Scarlet E, since it will severely restrict the tenant's housing options for many years. Many landlords check court records and automatically reject applicants with a previous eviction filing. As a result, many Americans with a past eviction filing become homeless, forced to rely on expensive, tenuous extended stay motels that accept bad credit tenants in return for far higher housing costs and no lease protections. Property rights are formalized in the U.S. Constitution, but we do not have an equivalent set of rights set out nationally for tenants. Okay, interesting. So tenants, we'd have to have Amy C3 on here someday. I need to get Amy on here to talk about this sort of a thing. Beyond the damage caused to the tenant's prospects in the private housing market, an eviction filing can disqualify a tenant from eligibility for a scarce and valuable spot in federally funded housing programs. Yeah, it seems kind of stupid. For example, one elderly Chicago tenant had her landlord dismiss an eviction filing after it was discovered that the rent collector had been stealing the money the tenant had been paying faithfully. Yet that eviction filing's presence on her record caused the tenant to be denied a spot in senior subsidized housing. That's ridiculous. Nationwide, the impact is expected to be devastating. We are preparing for an increase in eviction filings after the moratorium ends and possibly a big increase in families losing housing and becoming homeless, says Eliza Durana, a spokesperson for the Eviction Lab at Princeton University. The pandemic has really laid bare the housing crisis in this country, including how we treat black families, especially the women with children who are all evicted at disproportionate rates. But this is not new. The fear is we may go back to the pre-pandemic level of evictions of 3.7 million per year, which is 7 people being evicted every minute. Jesus Christ. Nearly impossible to build wealth without home. Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, you can still build wealth while renting, but the largest source of intergenerational wealth is, yes, home ownership. And that's one of the big, when you look at reparations in that discussion, homeownership is a large part of that intergenerational wealth transfer, to which people of color have been largely denied for decades and decades. And we had that article that we read, right, talking about intergenerational wealth and poverty and that sort of a thing. And it's, yeah, that's exactly right. It's very difficult without homeownership to build wealth that matters. I mean, it's one of the primary ways that us, poors build wealth. Like, what is that? 80% of stocks in the United States is owned by the top 20%. I mean, the rest of us, bottom 80% don't have enough stocks for it to really matter. The people most at risk of being thrown out of their homes are well aware of what's coming. The U.S. Census Bureau's biweekly household pulse survey issued on June 15th showed that nearly 4.2 million people nationwide report that it is likely or somewhat likely that they will be evicted or foreclosed upon in the next 2 months. Now, as we talk about here, this sort of a thing going on is what corporations and the rich love. They can get houses for pennies on the dollar. They make just billions of dollars off these recessions and depressions and all that sort of thing. What was it in LA or something like that? The BlackRock, Blackstone, Black something is buying up all these houses and properties that are being foreclosed upon or that are back on rent or something like that, which is, of course, increasing the level of homelessness and all that sort of stuff that's going on there. It's only going to get worse, much like it was during the housing crisis starting in 2008. Same shit happened then as is going to be happening now. Rich are going to make out like gangbusters. The problem with Indiana. For Indiana renters, I know my grandparents refused to sell their house to a black person who wanted to buy it. Okay. Yeah, it's a thing. Back in that age, our grandparents, racism was a thing. My grandparents died, shortly after I got. Actually, my grandfather died when I was in the Navy, and he was quite conservative. I didn't really realize it because I wasn't into politics and that sort of stuff. But they may have been someone who may have done that. My grandmother died years later, although she was not in it for many, many years. Her brain wasn't all there, unfortunately. They're victims of that era of racism and ignorance, and it's sad. All right. In a recent New York Times op-ed, the director of the Eviction Lab's tracking system singled out Indiana as one of the states with the highest risk for a post-moratorium surge in evictions as a result of both limited rental assistance and no significant state-level eviction protections. Now, I'm assuming because of this, they're definitely Republican-controlled, or has been for quite a while. Not that Democrats care that much more, but, That conclusion is not surprising given Indiana's consistently high ranking among states with the highest eviction rates. The most recent available data show the Indiana cities of Fort Wayne, Indianapolis, and South Bend all rank in the top 20 cities in the United States for eviction rates. Wow, in Indianapolis, in 2016, an average of nearly 32 households were evicted every day, the highest rate for U.S. cities with a population over 500,000. During the past year, the CDC moratorium slowed that rate, but in Indiana and beyond, this may only be delaying the inevitable. Of course, since the moratorium does not prevent landlords from eventually demanding all rent that has accrued, which means they can never pay it, and they're gone. In Indiana, nearly 20% of renters were unable to make any payments as of December 2020. Calls to Indiana's 211 helpline in late 2020 were showing housing and utility costs as the top unmet need. As Judge Grave notes, federal pandemic tenant assistance funds have been made available in Indiana, but many landlords are choosing not to participate in those programs. Well, they shouldn't have a fucking choice to participate. Fuck them. How is that a thing? That shouldn't be a choice. It should be the money goes to the people or directly to the landlord. They shouldn't have a fucking choice. Take the money and shut up. Bunch of money-grubbing bastards. Many of the most stubborn landlords are those who rent to parents with children, particularly black parents. Racism, of course. Children spending more time at home during the pandemic has increased landlord-tenant tensions. Consistent with the long-time evidence that the presence of children increases the likelihood of an eviction. Oh, that's crazy. Why is that a fucking thing? Oh, Jesus. Got a whole... Okay, got a study here. All right, I'll throw this in here so you can take a look at it. We're not going to go through this. But this is troubling. Multiple national studies show that black women with children are particularly at risk of being evicted, so it is not surprising that recent Indiana data show that black and Latino households are at the greatest risk of post-moratorium evictions. Most often, tenants' struggles come down to a simple, brutal fact: they do not have enough income to afford high rent costs. More than half of Indiana's 800,000 renters lost employment income during the pandemic, and fewer than 1 in 4 eligible low-income renters are able to access federally supported housing programs. That leaves most low-income Hoosiers at the mercy of the for-profit housing market, where affordable options are scarce. So, all right. So how do we kind of start dealing with this? Just saying the words through the government, housing is a human right. That is a place to start. And the affordability. I was on a panel on Monday with Prime K's and 8 other people, and we talked about housing first. And Amy C3 was on there. She's also super amazing. If you haven't followed her, follow her, because housing is her thing. She's a big DSA person and very much into tenants' rights and activism that way. So for me, declaring housing as a human right is a good place to start. Setting a high minimum wage and a low maximum wage, and that's going to be key to making sure the prices for housing stays between where people can actually afford them. A UBI would be another way to help deal with that. Universal basic income, so people have money. Public housing is a good way to deal with this as well. That's something I'm very, very hip on. I talk about that in my policies as well. We're looking at redesigning our cities. You can use eminent domain, or what's that? What's that called? Community land trusts is a way of purchasing land and having the community own and manage it, and making sure that the rent is, affordable and that sort of a thing. So that is important. There's lots of ways we can deal with it, but rent control is kind of prefab homes. Yeah, building homes that are cheap. The problem I have a little bit is when people look at building housing for public, they tend to be small and, not big enough, nor with the amenities needed to really allow people to grow and thrive. When I think of community housing, I'm almost honestly thinking of to an extent, like a 4-star hotel. You've got, an office area, tennis courts, swimming pool, green areas, small store. You want a babysitting area, I think I already said. Maybe a small school, and lots of things like that. Too much are we looking at public housing, ways of dealing with this, as just being, small enough that people shut up and say, hey, we've got housing, so shut the hell up. But these small home areas, these tiny homes sprouting up, those things fucking enrage me. It's not that they're giving people housing. That's not the problem. It's the fact that they're so fucking small. It's better than nothing, but that shouldn't be what we're doing. For every single homeless person in this country, there's at least 31 places to live sitting empty. It's not that we don't fucking have places to live. They don't have access to them, and access is the problem, of course, because capitalism, and fuck the people if you can't make money off them. So, and also, you can make it's more efficient, I suppose, resource-wise, to do it through large scale social housing instead of individual housing as well. And it's even better if you can have integrated housing. So you've got mixed income, mixed, if you try to have, you got fair housing laws you still have to deal with and all that, but trying to have intentionally diverse communities, which can help significantly. All right, I don't know if I'm going to watch anything on YouTube because, this is the Gravel Institute. Oh, I don't know if I can watch this. See, I already have a strike on my account for YouTube because I'm live streaming to YouTube as well. I don't think I've seen this one. When did this one come out? Okay, this is January. Okay, so I'm pretty sure I have. Okay, we'll watch this one. I think the Gravel Institute should be okay, and hopefully I won't get a strike on my account for this. We'll finish reading this, and then we'll go ahead and watch that. Slide this over. Yeah, Gravel Institute's pretty cool. All right. Thanks for sharing, Grateful. As reported by Prosperity Indiana, the National Low Income Housing Coalition, even the modest rental units in Indiana come with a rent that takes up an unsustainable percentage of many Hoosiers' workers' wages. For example, a fair market rent for a 2-bedroom apartment in Indiana is $848. Yikes. I just started live streaming on using Restream.io, and so I'm doing Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. We were watching a bunch of videos on YouTube. So basically, if I watch something on YouTube and they're a bunch of assholes, then I might get a strike for it. It was something from YouTube. I don't remember exactly what, because their reporting thing where they tell you have a copyright issue that it doesn't show me what it is. It's just, hey, you got a strike, fuck you, and they delete your video. And I tried to, I was able to overturn one of these. I've received 3 complaints. I overturned one. You get the free one to start. I overturned one, and the third one was a strike. So now I'm super concerned about that. Sometimes I'll do one of my streams, and I will just watch a bunch of videos, and I won't stream to YouTube. That way I don't have to worry about it, because Twitch doesn't care. Yeah, it might have been. And that's pretty much why I'm very gun-shy about playing anything on here. I think the Gravel Institute should be fine because they're one of us and all that, but I don't know. Fuck our heads. If a worker is going to devote the recommended 30% of their income to housing, they need to earn over $16 per hour in full-time employment, or even higher in Indianapolis and other metropolitan areas. Exactly. 16, and that's why I say, and I don't think I go too deep into my minimum wage thing, but ultimately that we should have the minimum wage and the poverty level recalculated based on cost of living for that area, because like they're talking about here, right? $16 an hour is more than the $15 an hour required for full-time wage in order to afford just living in that area. That's something that we need to be looking at. And honestly, if you have a high minimum wage and a low maximum wage, that will help to further squish that cost of living down significantly. The $16 per hour full-time wage needed to afford housing is significantly higher than the average Indiana renter wage of closer to $14 per hour, and it is far above the wage of workers in fields like home care, retail, and food service, in industries disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. Not to mention the very limited incomes of people living with disabilities. Again, this is, people living with Social Security, they're living on shit amount of money. The gap between the income needed and the rent demanded causes financial strain, and a breaking point often occurs when unexpected medical, family, or transportation costs arises. Again, a lot of these people, they're just one disaster, one bad thing going wrong away from being homeless or bankrupt or all that bullshit. Nationally, far and away, the top reason for eviction is non-payment of rent. Okay, I'm sure there's other reasons you can get evicted, like loud noise or something like that, but yeah, this kind of is a no-brainer. Eviction in the spotlight. On paper, it seems like procedural safeguards, including the moratorium, should protect struggling tenants, but national and local advocates say the respect shown for the CDC moratorium in Judge Graves' court is more the exception than the norm. Brandon Beeler, director of the Housing Law Center at Indiana Legal Services, says that landlords and courts across the state routinely failed to inform tenants of the moratorium's protections. Okay. Many Indiana tenants have already been evicted, even though they qualified for extra time to stay in their homes, he says. Now, listen, as a part of, enacting national moratorium, that is a good thing. But what they should have done in addition to that is literally pausing rent. Like pausing rent and mortgages all throughout the country. Otherwise, just like it's happening here, it's the rent and stuff is going to build up and they can't do anything about it because they don't have work. Beeler's observations reflect an overall approach across state government and the legal system that weighs the scales of justice heavily in favor of landlords over tenants. In one Indiana county, the court was discovered to be using a court reporter to issue pre-signed eviction orders, refusing to allow tenants to even speak to the judge before stamping a court order forcing them out. Well, that's messed up. A client of Beeler's saw her rental home's roof cave in during a snowstorm. When the landlord refused to fix it, the tenant rigged up a tarp to keep snow out of the home and held back some of her rent payment. Okay, that's messed up. The court found that the gaping hole in her roof was no excuse for not paying full and ordered her evicted. Well, that's fucked up. Tenants have rights, and that's messed up. It's difficult to avoid being evicted if the tenant did not pay rent, even if the tenant has complained about deplorable housing conditions, Beeler says. Most tenants do not have an attorney. When unrepresented tenants go to court, they don't know how or when they could raise legal defenses, so the issue comes down to non-payment of rent, and by and large, they lose the case. Indiana's failure to provide due process for renters is so acute that even the state's Chief Justice of its Supreme Court highlights it in her 2020 State of the Judiciary address. I recently spent a morning in small claims court. The morning docket included 275 eviction cases. None of the tenants had legal representation, not one. They all faced the judge and opposing lawyer alone. That is not the model of a legal system where the poor, disadvantaged, and vulnerable are protected. Yeah, so my policies, I say all lawyers should be, they should work for the government, work for the public. They should not be any private lawyers, so that large companies can't just bury the poor with lawsuits, and the poor have actual access to free quality counsel. There can't be any level of equality in this country until everyone truly has access to representation. Much like which is exactly what they're pointing out here, right? The audience for Chief Justice Loretta Rush's observation was the Indiana General Assembly. But when the city of Indianapolis tried to adopt local protections for tenants whose landlords retaliated against them for reporting poor conditions, those same state legislators passed a law making such local ordinances illegal. Okay, that's fucked up. Tried to adopt local protections for tenants whose landlords retaliated for reporting poor conditions. Yeah, they made that illegal. That's messed up. As bad as the environment in Indiana is for renters, several other states seem intent on matching it. The Eviction Lab's Eliza Durana points out that many judges in states like Texas have been ignoring the CDC moratorium for months, and tenants in those states enjoy few due process protections. In Florida, for example, landlords can obtain an immediate default judgment against any tenant who does not deposit all unpaid rent within 5 days of receiving the court notice. No court hearing required. Over 40% of eviction cases in the state end in this automatic default ruling against the tenant. Yikes. Beeler fears that the summer's eviction surge will further weaken Indiana's already limited protections for renters. The emergency rental assistance funds are still coming in, so there should be time allowed for renters to catch up, he says. But my concern for our clients is that this coming high volume of cases overflowing dockets will make these courts act even more transactional on landlord-tenant cases than they already do. To Durana of the Eviction Lab, the struggles in Indiana and other states illustrate a systemic problem that predates COVID. Property rights are formalized in the U.S. Constitution, but we do not have an equivalent set of rights set out nationally for tenants. Okay, so I guess in my policies, I'm going to have to add that in for housing as a human right, adding a tenant's bill of rights. Now, I don't know what that is going to be, how that's going to look, but I'm sure if I talk to Amy, maybe she'll have a good link for what that might look like. She says, eviction is not just a condition of poverty, it is a major cause of it. It has been unregulated for a very long time, and the pandemic is just putting that in the spotlight. Okay, there you go. Whew. Yeah, the Jacobin articles tend to be fairly long. All right, questions, comments, suggestions? Yay, America. Whoop, whoop. All right, we will give, okay, it's on. We'll go ahead and watch this Gravel Institute one, because Gravel Institute is pretty awesome. You guys ready? All right, here we go. Well, actually, let me go ahead and change my stuff here. I'll go and share this again. Even though Grafer Poll just shared it, just to make sure. And here we go.
American housing is in crisis. Right now, up to 12 million Americans are behind an average of $5,800 on rent and risk eviction. With eviction moratoriums soon to expire, we're facing an unprecedented wave of evictions and foreclosures that will crash straight into millions of struggling families across the country. But the truth is, this crisis didn't begin with the pandemic. In fact, housing has been in crisis for a very long time. Even before the pandemic, in places like New York or Los Angeles or San Francisco, median rents for even one-bedroom apartments could approach $2,500 a month or more. About a third of people in Los Angeles spend a majority of their income on housing. In New York City, about 20% of all renters pay most of their income to their landlord. And in my district, Astoria, about a quarter of residents have to spend most of their paycheck on rent. And the crisis isn't just in big cities. In 95% of all US counties, workers making the minimum don't make enough to afford a one-bedroom rental on their own. The Harvard Center for Housing Studies warns of a new normal for housing in the United States, in which nearly half of all renter households spend almost a third of their income on rent. That's why even before the fallout from the coronavirus started to hit, more than 500,000 Americans nationwide were already homeless, millions more on the brink of losing their housing, and countless families struggling every month to make ends meet. At the root of all of this suffering is the fact that in this country, housing is treated as a commodity, not a right. It's a consumer product, just like clothes or cars, that private businesses can sell on the market to make a profit. And if someone isn't able to pay, either because their landlord raised their rent or because they can't work for one reason or another, they're not able to stay in their homes. If they're lucky, they can live with friends or family, or maybe in transitional housing for a bit. But for a lot of people, they have nowhere else to go, and they end up sleeping on the streets. In December 2019, the number of people sleeping in homeless shelters in New York reached 19,000 people, an all-time high. 100,000 New York City students are homeless. That's more than 10% of the entire student population. Why do so many people end up homeless? It's not because there aren't enough homes to go around. There are plenty of empty homes. No, it's because housing people is not the primary goal of developers or landlords. Their goal, simply put, is to make a profit. And it's much more profitable to build luxury apartments for the rich than decent homes for the poor. This gives us a big shortage of homes for ordinary working people. For every 100 households that are extremely low income, there are only 36 affordable and available homes. As a result, we have plenty of housing for the rich, but poor and working class people don't have nearly enough on the market. So we have people scrounging to make ends meet or sleeping on the streets right below luxury condos and uninhabited apartments. This is a terrible way to organize a housing market. It might be profitable for landlords and developers, but it's not efficient or beneficial for the rest of society.
Now, one thing I'll say, and this is, I added this to my policies a while ago, but we need to change how businesses work. Currently, the only thing that matters to businesses is profitability. And that is fundamentally the problem, which he's talking about here. It's all they care about is profit, so they do the thing that's most profitable. So we need to fundamentally change the laws around what the goals of business really is. It first needs to be doing good for humanity, good for the natural world, and then profit needs to be the tertiary goal or the tertiary way in which we judge businesses. And that will help. That change could fundamentally change this problem that we're having here.
In fact, housing doesn't have to be seen as a market at all. In other countries, housing is considered a fundamental right, like education or healthcare. That means the government goes to significant lengths to guarantee everyone has a home, and the market plays a much smaller role in the construction and distribution of housing. So let's hop across the pond and about 100 years back in time to take a look at just one example of how an alternative housing model got started in beautiful red Vienna. At the end of the First World
Yeah, we read the article on this, Red Vienna. It was another Jacobin article. This is from months and months ago. This one's pretty cool.
War, the Austro-Hungarian Empire collapsed, leaving behind a number of successor states, including modern-day Austria, home to the former imperial capital of Vienna, the fifth largest city in the world. Despite being the seat of an empire, the chaos of the war and decades of neglect had left the working class of Vienna in desperate circumstances. Inflation was rampant, jobs were scarce, social services were non-existent, and hundreds of thousands of people were crammed into decaying tenements where overcrowding, disease, and violence were rampant. So it's no surprise that in 1919, at the first elections ever held in Austria where all adult citizens could vote, the Social Democratic Party swept into power at the municipal level on the promise of dramatic social and economic reform. And they delivered. The new government of Vienna implemented a huge range of services, including public health care and public child care. They built high-quality hospitals, schools, and recreational facilities. But their crowning achievement was an ambitious program of social housing, what Americans call public housing, that began in 1923 and saw 60,000 new apartments constructed in the first year of its existence, built by the government and financed by taxes on the rich. But these weren't the kinds of apartments you might picture when you think of public housing in the United States. Drab high-rises plagued by chronic neglect and underinvestment. Residents could enjoy leafy courtyards, wide-open spaces, and plenty of natural light. They had shared laundries, state-of-the-art kitchens, food co-ops, bathhouses, pharmacies, lecture halls, schools, and swimming pools. These apartments were designed to be both beautiful to look at and beautiful to live in, fostering a sense of shared community among the people who lived there. And the best part was that because the city didn't have to worry about making a profit, just about paying off their maintenance costs, these homes were both much nicer and much cheaper than what workers had previously known. In 1926, the average rent in Viennese social housing was about just 4% of a monthly wage. The first 15 years after Austrian independence saw its capital transform from a symbol of urban blight into a beacon of socialist governance. It became known as Red Vienna, after the official color of the socialists who had pioneered these changes. And even though Red Vienna fell in 1934 when the country was seized by fascists, who did what they could to roll back social housing, that commitment to good, cheap housing remained after the Second World War. Today, an astonishing 62% of all city residents live in social housing, with the average monthly rent falling somewhere between $400 and $600 a month, with subsidies for lower-income tenants. That is a fraction of what people in America pay. Unlike in the United States, where public housing is treated as a worst-case way to house the very poor, Vienna's social housing residents are extremely diverse. Everyone except the top fifth of the population is eligible to live in social housing. This means there's broad appeal across many segments of society, which creates the foundation for its political popularity. That is how the majority of people in Vienna enjoy something that's considered almost utopian here in New York. Affordable housing that isn't just cheap, but desirable. Housing that isn't just four walls and a roof, but a real home, with a sense of stability, safety, and community built in. Now, of course, this is only one example of an alternative framework for housing, and Vienna has not fully removed housing from the domain of the market. Residents still pay part of their earnings in rent to cover operational costs, and a sizable chunk of the population lives in private housing. But it's an actually existing alternative that shows us what a step toward a better world could look like. If we want to end the housing crisis, the solution has to be moving toward the full decommodification of housing. In other words, moving away from the status quo, in which most people access housing by purchasing it on the market, and toward a future where we guarantee high-quality housing to all as a human right. So how can we do it? We can start by making sure people who access housing on the private market have ironclad protections against abuse and exploitation. But to go further, toward the Vienna model, we'll have to go beyond the market. We can establish community land trusts to gradually buy up housing on the private market and convert it to community ownership. We can give tenants a right of first refusal to buy out their landlords when buildings go up for sale. And we can fully commit to a new era of social housing, ending subsidies for luxury housing development and using our wealth to build beautiful, high-quality social housing projects that offer good homes and strong communities to everyone. We won't decommodify housing overnight, but we know what we have to do, and we have history to guide us. And we know how we'll get there, through a movement of the multiracial working class organizing for the better world we know is possible. And we've already begun. I'm Zohran Mamdani, Assemblyman for New York's 36th Assembly District in Astoria, Queens, for the Gravel Institute.
All right, there you go. Yeah, that's good stuff there. Yeah, the Red Vienna thing. That's such a great example, and that's kind of what I think about when I talk about potentially making public housing, even maybe taking it a step beyond in the number and type of amenities that they provide. But yeah, that's it. I mean, it can be done. They're doing it. It's just that here in the United States, with the high level of inequality and the complete and total corporate ownership of our government, that it becomes difficult to do. But it's something that we could do. That's something that we should be doing. We should be striving to do that here as an answer to our housing problem. Actually, we don't have a housing problem. We have people having access to housing problem. We have plenty of housing, just they don't have access to it. All right, any questions, comments, suggestions on that? We're going to move on to Biden being a right-wing authoritarian asshole. Biden, see, when is this from 2 days ago? Biden backs funding more police to fight crime wave. Right, exactly. So again, the Democrats, they're not tone deaf. They just don't honestly give a fuck, right? You got all of the protests about defunding the police, and what's he want to do? He wants to double down on adding more police. We already have, like that one study shows, if how much the United States spends on police was considered a military force, it would be the third largest military in the world. I mean, that is insane. You don't want to be a farmer? Shizbezwector, how you doing? Welcome. Why don't you want to be a farmer? Is someone trying to force you to be a farmer? And what are you farming? Well, it's not so much the least amount of farmers. It's about how you allocate resources. If you have any economic system can focus on high levels of vertical farming, right? We could feed everyone in this country on the 10th of the land, a 10th of the water using vertical farming and that sort of a thing. And we could heavily automate that, but that requires an incredible amount of capital outlay to do, and it also requires and farms to change themselves. So we could do that today. I mean, we could write the check to do that. I eat the white part of watermelons. You eat the white part of watermelons? I'm not a watermelon person. My daughter and wife are. But okay, good for you. More fiber. So if we shift to maybe shifting to socialism, shifting to resource-based economy is my preference. Honestly, if you had enough people working with you, you could on a local level, like say, talk to a few farmers who have farms together in a small area, and you could get a hold of like a co-op organization, people that help co-ops get work together and do their thing. You could get like a few farms, buy them, and have them agree to change their land and set up a giant ass vertical farm, and then wild the rest of it, and they can still be making the same amount of food, and they can make actually they can be making more food because they can make food year round. Now, if you had that sort of a support and that's sort of a people who be willing to do that, you could reduce the number of farms. Energy really isn't a problem. I mean, again, you could set up sustainable energy as a way of supporting that. I want everyone to be a cyborg, so we don't need farmers. Well, that post-humanism, that's a one way. We're getting there. Elon Musk is definitely working towards that, but we're still quite a far way of doing that. But yeah, great for Paul. Fusion will be the kind of really big thing that will take that as not something we ever have to worry about. But you're right, it does use a lot of energy, but we can deal with that through through sustainable energy. I mean, it's something that they could have on premises. Like I'm talking about policies, right? You could have your vertical farm. Then on top of that, you could have vertical axis wind turbines. And then you could have solar panels, right? And then on top of that, maybe you've got a kite turbine. Probably wouldn't want to put that on top of that. But on the rest of that, the other 90% of land that you rewild, you could put your kite turbine over there as a way to. Yeah, I know. It's always 20 years away, right? I know. But you can deal with it. It does take a lot of energy, but you can do it. There's plenty of ways of creating the energy to sustain it. Of course, geothermal, depending on where you are as well. Of course, tidal. That's what I talk about here. What we need to be backing for baseload power supply, geothermal and tidal, and then your solar and wind can be the intermittent ones that give more. And of course, microgrids is another way to help support that as well in case it does take too much energy. And some of the locals have extra energy that can support that as well. Yeah, energy is a problem, but sustainable energy is the way we can deal with that. Will 2022 be the year of the Linux desktop? I sincerely doubt that. ITER should go on to the next. I hope so. The more fusion research we have, the better off it's going to be. Well, technically, Shizbaz Vector isn't Apple's OS is Nix based, right? It's Debian based, so technically that is a Linux desktop, right? So technically that kind of is one. And hopefully, I'm hoping someday, yeah, Windows 11. I'm really hoping that they go Linux based, but I sincerely doubt it. There's people have already been looking at pre-releases of it, so I don't think they are going Linux. I would like to see that. I really would. Windows needs to go Nix just like Apple did. Hopefully to make it a lot more stable. And even if you want to go even better, if Windows and Apple use the same backend and just have different UIs for it, that way both of them could be upgrading and increasing and making the base OS continually better without having to recreate the window on two different OSs. I've done Linux installs and played with it. It's I grew up on DOS and Windows 3.1.1, that sort of stuff. So I don't mind the command line, but that's not viable for a commercial. Android apps work on Windows 11, really? Well, that's neat. What does that mean? Interesting. Is it no, Windows 11 can't be Chrome or Android, Android, right? Is that Android OS? Is that what it's called? No, they wouldn't have done that. Huh? Interesting. Very interesting. Do Apple apps work on there? Do you know? That'd be interesting. I missed with Windows, they got rid of their gadgets, and I had a gadget that you looked at, RAM usage and processor utilization, that sort of thing. I miss that. Like right now, I have oh my god, it's not running. The come back here. The task manager always up and looking at the performance tab so I can see what's going on. So I missed that gadget. All right. Biden backs funding more police to fight crime wave. You fucking asshat. Fuck that war criminal. President Joe Biden has unveiled a plan that includes funding more police to combat a nationwide surge of homicides, which blamed on lax gun control. Okay. Windows 11 kind of ugly. Biden fought in a war. Well, murdering people with drones, sustaining all of the military things, Afghanistan, Iraq, all that sort of stuff. Every single president basically is a war criminal by maintaining the U.S. imperial military-industrial complex, murdering people globally for fun and for profit. So, all right, so the cause in homicides is directly proportional to the level of inequality in the country. If you really cared about this problem, much like the defund the, that's not in the Geneva Conventions. Okay, sure, but still war criminal. Obama needs to be in jail. Well, murdering people with drones is. Wasn't he chastised by somebody for that? I don't remember. I don't keep track. All presidents need to be in jail. In the US, at least. So there's a direct correlation between homicides and the level of inequality in the country. If you look at my policies, the first two books explicitly talk about that. Oh, come on. Come on. There's no law against upholding the American civil military industrial thing. Of course not, because why would they do that? Because, that's where the money is, right? Corporations write the laws. So, again, if you want to look at this, the spirit level and the inner level, specifically talk, no law broken equals no crime. Well, in the same token, right, slavery was legal. The, the murder of Jews was legal. Just because there's no law doesn't mean there's no crime. Just because something is illegal doesn't mean it is technically wrong, right? We shouldn't use the legality or illegality as a guide for, whether or not it should or should not be done. All right. So again, slave owners were evil, but they weren't criminals. And that is the fundamental problem, right? They were definitely criminals. It's just the law wasn't against them. Can't throw. Sure I can. I can throw it around all day long. Okay. So yeah, homicides is directly correlated to level of inequality. So if you actually want to do something about homicides, you can reduce inequality. And that's what the defund the police movement is. And that's exactly what we need to be doing. That's what he said he's not going to do. So he doesn't actually care about homicides. Now, gun laws, as I talk about my policies, you're a thought criminal? Okay. That's fair, I suppose. I'm gatekeeping and declaring others as criminals. I'm judging. All right, I'll take it. I'll take it. And even in my policies, I say under the law enforcement and gun control that, anything we do for gun control is just a patchwork, because the core problem of actual gun violence lays in inequality. So if you want to deal with homicides and violence and crimes, if you are not dealing with lowering inequality, you're fucking wrong, period. And you are part of the problem. So we know Biden is. He's a corrupt piece of shit. But And as you can see here, he doesn't actually want to solve the problem. He just wants his rich corporations and cronies to make more money. Imagine if cops just walked down the street and randomly declared people as criminals. Wait, they actually do that. And they execute them. And they fucking execute them. Right? Fuck. He said officials in high crime areas can hire more law enforcement personnel using coronavirus relief funding. Oh, go fuck. Oh my god, dude. This needs to go to the fucking people. Oh my god. This guy is such Steven Crowder. Yeah, I did. I saw that. Fuck Crowder. I hope someday he actually takes up that Sam Cedar. He's a smart man. I would love to see Crowder get his ass fucking wrecked. Fucking wrecked. Fucking coward. It'd be amazing. Yeah, I haven't been a fan of Crowder's for obvious reasons, and Sam Cedar. On occasion, I'll watch him. I generally don't have time to watch anyone because I'm so fucking busy. But yeah, he's a smart guy. Smart guy. So this here, of course, is problematic. This needs to go to the people. Hiring more law enforcement doesn't stop the crime problem. Lowering inequality does. Mr. Biden's crime-fighting strategy calls for curtailing rogue gun dealers and firearms trafficking. Okay, sure. Again, this is a patchwork thing. Gun control is less powerful than lowering inequality, period. I mean, all throughout, the last 100 years of history, the United States government has done study after study, specifically after race riots, like the 1967 race riots. They had the Kerner Report. I have a blog post on this. That said, if you want to reduce these race riots, Americans need to be stopping racist fucks and reducing inequality. We've known for a very long time how to deal with this problem. And it's lowering inequality. Republicans are depicting Mr. Biden's Democrats as weak on crime amid calls by left-wingers to defund the police. Yep. Republicans can go fuck themselves, and this is exactly what we need to do, defund the police. I have a whole blog post on talking about what this is. So I'll go ahead and share this here for you guys to take a look. Here's my post on defund the police from my policies. I wasn't sure if I should put it there or put it elsewhere, but here you go if you want to read it. Announcing his 5-point strategy to the White House on Wednesday, the president urged cities and states to use $350 billion of funding from a COVID-19 relief bill on public safety efforts, including adding more police officers, even beyond pre-pandemic levels. Fucking balls, dude. God, this guy's horrific. Such a fucking corporate shill. That fucking COVID money needs to go to the people, not to more fucking police officers. It's not going to do jack shit. It means more police officers, more nurses, more counselors, more social workers, and community violence interrupters to help resolve issues before they escalate into crimes, the president said. Okay, all right. So if it's going to go towards this, sure, that is a start, but that doesn't solve what causes the crime, which is poverty and inequality. Again, he doesn't want to solve the problem because that's not what he's getting paid to do by his corporate owners, right? And he wrote the crime bills, which puts disproportionate number of people of color in jail, right? He's fucking horrible. Yeah. Some members of Mr. Biden's party have amplified calls by Black Lives Matter activists to defund the police, though the president himself has resisted the slogan, which is unpopular with most voters, because most voters are idiots. Mr. Biden, I don't like the term itself either, but what it stands for is exactly what needs to be done. Mr. Biden, who as a senator wrote the 1994 crime bill, widely blamed for mass incarceration of black people, said on Wednesday, this is not a time to turn our backs on law enforcement or our communities. Well, passing this law turns your backs on those communities. Unless tamed, the crime wave is likely to become a major issue ahead of the next year's congressional midterm elections. Well, it's always going to be an issue unless you deal with inequality. During his remarks at the White House, the president also took aim at armed insurrectionists, saying they would need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons to take on the U.S. government. And that's kind of the issue with the Second Amendment. Unless you have access to F-15s and nuclear bombs, you have no way of dealing, going against the police or the U.S. military. It's just fucking stupid. The Biden administration has proposed gun control as a remedy for violent crime, although Democratic bills in Congress to limit Americans' access to firearms have been blocked by Republicans. Of course they can. Then here's also the thing, right? The Democrats can pass any law they want right now because they have their just over 50% margin or whatever it is, right? But they're choosing not to because when the Democrats are in power, they don't actually want to do much because if they do, well, they're not serving their corporate owners. They want to be, they want to, they want it to be known that the Republicans are the problem, so they can say Republicans bad, so just vote for us, right? It's that vote blue no matter who mentality, which I've written about over here, right? Lesser two evils voting is antithetical to democracy. Joe Biden passed a huge infrastructure bill. Did that get passed? Do you have a link on it? I'll have to take a look at that. I mean, it's nowhere near what it needs to be. It did? Okay, cool. It's good to hear. But again, as I've shredded Biden's presidential campaign and his policies, especially when dealing with climate, it's not going to be anywhere near what it needs to be. But if you have a link, throw it in here. We'll take a look at it. I'm curious to see what's in there. But the administration's strategy also proposes investing in community violence intervention programs, employment opportunities, and summer activities for teenagers and young adults, and support for formerly incarcerated Americans reentering their communities. Okay, this stuff here is good. This is good stuff by and large, so this is good. But again, lowering inequality, minimum wage, universal education, legalizing drugs, and setting people out of prison who are there for nonviolent drug-related crimes is mostly what needs to be done. Okay, thanks. I'll take a look at that. The president recently hosted several big city mayors at the White House for a discussion on crime prevention. I'm assuming they didn't talk about inequality. Why is the U.S. seeing more violence? I don't know, because people are losing their houses, losing their jobs because of COVID, and there's no social support for such things. No universal housing, no universal health care, no universal education, no UBI, none of the sort of stuff that people need during this pandemic. And of course, corporations are buying up all the houses so that the housing crisis becomes even more of a problem, much like we're talking about earlier. Okay, cool. Thank you. In March, the FBI released preliminary 2020 statistics showing a significant jump, 25% in murders from the year before. COVID is going to be a large part of that. So far, the upward trend has continued in 2021. The Bureau will release its official numbers in September. If early projections bear out, it will be one of the largest homicide increases ever reported. Again, if they had the rent and mortgage moratorium passed, this would help alleviate a lot of this, because people going homeless, like we talked about earlier, is going to be a huge problem. You get into Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If your deficiency needs aren't met, crime may end up being one of the things that results. You need your deficiency needs met, otherwise bad things happen. This was a large-scale national increase in violence. Jeff Asher, co-founder of AH Data Analytics and former analyst for the CIA and Department of Defense, told the BBC. Some analysts have blamed the wave of homicides on the COVID-19 pandemic, although research indicates that global crime rates outside the U.S. fell or were stable amid the lockdowns. Again, so this will probably come because of inequality is lower in other countries. We have one of the highest levels of inequality in the developed world. I mean, it's fucking criminal. The last number I saw is 347 to 1. One of the lowest levels of inequality is Japan, which is like ×9, the lowest, or whatever it is. It's inequality is why this is. Those two books go over it in massive detail. Other analysts see the cause as low police morale after the murder of George Floyd last year in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and the ensuing civil unrest that swept the U.S. cities. The University of Utah study pinpointed the spike in U.S. homicides to late May 2020 when Mr. Floyd was killed by an officer. But even with this steep rise, the murder rate is still far lower than in the early 90s, when it was almost double the current figure. And crime overall, including rapes, robberies, and other property crime, dropped by 6% in 2020, among the large decreases on record. And that, of course, is because of the early part of the pandemic, when people are staying home and that sort of thing. That was something that we read too as well. Crime went down because of the pandemic, people social distancing and stuff like that, and then it's going to start going back up again. Okay, there we go. There's that. I think that's the rest of that, right? Okay, so Twitter. Okay, anytime the president says it's good, it's probably okay. I'll just keep my whiny bitch ass. All right, let's take a look at this. I don't want to hear what the president has to say, honestly. What does If it's bipartisan, you know people are getting fucked. Okay. Biden backs trillion infrastructure bill, but places big condition. Your plan, okay. Okay, what's in the bill? Less than half the money of the 8-year proposal is new spending. 109 billion for roads, bridges, 66 billion for railways, 49 billion for public transport, and 25 billion for airports. Okay, 73 billion be pumped into power grid and 65 billion for expanding America's access to broadband internet. Okay. I live 2 blocks away from Derek Chauvin. Says, oh, do you really? Wow. How's it been? I mean, it's been a while since all that went down, like last summer, right? What was your experience with all that? Package is meant to be paid for with unused coronavirus aid money. Oh, and returned state jobless benefits. Okay, this is the problem right here. Unused coronavirus aid money. That shouldn't be a thing. Return state jobless benefits. Okay, that's not good. Also argue the bill's proposed 40 billion investment in internal IRS for beefed up enforcement would generate a net gain of 100 billion tax revenue. Okay, that's good. The plan would reportedly neither raise taxes on middle income Americans nor reverse the cuts to business taxes that were passed during the Trump presidency. Okay, this is problematic, of course. Not raising it on people, of course, is good, and not increasing the taxes on the rich is also bad. And again, whatever plan the federal government passes, taxes never have to be a part of the solution, never have to be part of the equation. Republicans had strongly opposed Biden's calls to increase the corporate tax rate from 21 to 28%. Fuck you guys. Well, the president had rejected a plan to hike taxes on gas. Okay, this is just a day ago, so it doesn't say that he passed it. When this thing went down, you couldn't drive through the neighborhood. Oh, I bet people were lost their minds. But this doesn't actually talk about what was actually passed. What did... Okay, let's go back here. Blah, blah, blah. Again, this is bullshit. Democrats and Republicans who work together, that's fucking stupid. Because this is a way the Democrats can say, hey, we want to do stuff, but the Republicans don't work with us. They don't fucking need to work with us because you guys have a majority. You just pass it and fucking get through it. Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. I indicated that I would refuse to sign the infrastructure bill if it was sent to me without my family's plan and other priorities, including clean energy. Okay, upset Republicans. Fuck Republicans. Let's see. Bottom line is... Okay, so it hasn't been passed yet, but he's talking about it. What about... Yeah, exactly. The filibuster needs to go away. Exactly, yep. They have the ability to do that right now, but they're not doing it. And Joe Manchin, fuck that guy. And fuck the parliamentarian. Again, these are just ways that they use to make sure that they don't get things done because they're not in power to get things done. They're there to give money to the rich and the corporations, right? Yeah, that's not... They have... What is it? Biden now can get rid of student loans by a signature or some shit like that. So a lot of things that they can do, but they're not going to because they don't want to. They're not in power to actually change things, and that's the fundamental problem. Oh, I had... Okay. All right, so here, this isn't a big one on this topic. I found it... We were talking about critical race theory earlier, right? Okay, so I didn't get that. Hold on. Oh, actually, hold on. It's 5 o'clock. I actually have to call it a day. I'll go and share this. Dude was locked in his house trying to order Uber Eats, and protesters would turn away. An Uber Eats driver, it got unsafe for him to live in his house. There was a cab painted on the garage door. Yeah, I bet. Well, when you murder someone in cold blood on camera and everyone knows about it, I would hope that there's some level of ramifications. He's going to prison for 22 years and can get out in 15 or some shit like that. Did anything happen to his 3 accomplices? I think they all got fired, but I think they'll be hired by someone else. But I don't think they're going to jail or anything like that, are they? Again, like I said originally, when they were going to charge him, Derek Chauvin is just going to be the sacrificial lamb to make people shut up. Because they don't actually want to solve the thing. You don't know? Okay. Yeah, I don't remember either. I thought that they might have gotten something. I think I heard that, but I don't remember. I do not remember. Well, it's something, I guess. All right, people. I've got my 2 hours here. I need to call it a day so my wife and daughter don't get angry at me. So I'll make this last call for comments, and then we can call it a day. Again, thank you all for joining me, and Grateful Paul, thank you for your post. You always have amazing links. I hope it's my daughter's birthday tomorrow, so we'll be dealing with that, and hopefully I'll be playing Dungeons and Dragons tomorrow too. But I don't know if that's going to be a thing either. So we'll see. We shall see how the rest of my weekend goes. Anybody else? Last call for comments? Anything? Going once. Going twice. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you for gifting me with your time. Hope you guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys next week. Again, if you haven't followed me and you're watching, I stream on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And so, thank you. And if you want to support me as well, I've got, you can follow me on Discord, Facebook. You see that down below in the About area or whatever. Facebook, Twitter, Discord, my blog, my policy site. I've got my Patreon site too. If you want to support me there, that's something you can do as well. But yeah, have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you guys later.
Just me and you.